life is inherently fragile and fleeting, like a cloud drifting across a deep blue sky. Each of us is on a journey with many twists and turns. Sometimes it's bright with morning sun. Other times, it's obscured by sudden showers. With every step, no one has ever been without sadness in their heart. No one has ever experienced moments of instability. There are long, sleepless nights when we silently embrace our worries, pondering a tomorrow that hasn't arrived. But then, if we pause and take a deep breath, we realize that everything is merely impermanent, just as the Buddha taught. All conditioned phenomena are impermanent, like a dream, like an illusion. If we know how to view life with optimistic eyes, we will see that even in suffering, a simple happiness is hidden, and that every day we live is a precious gift life bestows upon us. In reality, life never goes according to our expectations. Sometimes we diligently plant, but the harvest isn't as desired. Sometimes we love with all our hearts, but receive only indifference. That's why many people often cling to sorrow and discouragement, imprisoning themselves in pain day after day. But if we think deeply, we'll realize that suffering is like dark clouds that never stay in the sky forever. When the wind blows, the clouds disperse, and the sky becomes clear again, just like it was in the beginning. The human soul is the same. Sorrow will also vanish if we know how to let the wind carry it away, to let the current of life flow naturally. Someone once asked how to live optimistically when surrounded by injustice and challenges. The answer is actually very simple, but not easy to implement. Change your perspective. Instead of complaining, let's look at the small things that are present. A loved one's smile, a warm bowl of rice, a radiant sunset. All are miracles of life. The Buddha taught that in every breath, every mindful step, we can find peace and joy. As long as we open our hearts, we will see that there are still so many things around us to be grateful for, so many peaceful moments waiting for us to recognize. Sometimes, just sitting on the porch early in the morning, listening to birds sing, and watching the dew on the leaves, we will clearly feel how gentle this world still is. And in that gentleness, the sorrows in our souls seem to melt away, making room for an optimistic belief to penetrate every corner of our hearts. It is then that we understand that happiness is not something distant, but rather the ability to let go of worries and cherish the present moment. So, if today you are carrying some sorrow in your heart, allow yourself to breathe deeply and release it with the wind. Remember that life is impermanent. No one can hold on to anything forever. Optimism is not pretending there is no pain, but learning to smile even when standing in the rain. If we can live like that every day, no matter how many ups and downs life brings, we can still keep our minds peaceful and free. And that is also the introduction to the journey we are about to embark on together. Learning to think optimistically, to live happily, to let all worries fly away with the wind like a softly falling petal, like clouds drifting freely in the endless sky. In this impermanent flow of life, each of us has experienced gains and losses. There are days when you hold happiness in your hands, seemingly forever, but with just a small incident, everything suddenly slips away like sand through your fingers. Then there are days when you think you've lost everything. But from within that loss, another door opens, leading you to an unexpected joy. Life is like that, flowing according to its natural course, not changing because of anyone's personal desires. Understanding this is how we can learn to accept things calmly, so as not to be drawn into the whirlpool of suffering from gains and losses. The ancients said, "Be glad for what you gain, and also for what you lose, because everything is a lesson." That seemingly simple saying contains a profound truth of life. In Buddhism, there is one word everyone should learn to lighten the burden on their heart: impermanence. Everything in this world, from the flowers and leaves outside to our own bodies and breath, is in a state of constant change. When we understand impermanence, we no longer suffer excessively from loss, nor do we become too engrossed in the joy of gaining something. Because we know that everything is temporary, just a fleeting connection in an endless journey. Just think, if our entire lives we only focused on holding on to what we have and refused to let go, wouldn't we suffer excruciating pain every time we lost something? True happiness does not come from clinging tightly to something, but from an attitude of letting go, from the peace that comes with accepting the law of gain and loss. Like a river, when water flows away, new water comes. If you dam it up, the river will become a stagnant pond with no life left. Humans are the same. We must learn to let go of what has passed so that there is room for new things to come. Letting go is not losing. It is gaining more. There's a story about Mr. Lamb, a farmer living in a peaceful countryside village. His entire life was tied to the fields and the golden harvests of ripe rice. Every year, he hoped for calm weather, sun, and gentle winds to reap abundant grains. However, that year, the weather was erratic. Continuous storms and rains submerged the entire field. The rice crop was completely lost, and Mr. Lamb was so saddened he didn't even want to step out into the fields. All his capital and efforts seemed to have been washed away with the water. He sat on his porch, looking at the empty field, his heart heavy as a stone. But then, during those seemingly gloomy days, he found time to sit by the fire, chatting about life with his wife, and sharing small joys with his children. He began teaching his children how to read, telling them old stories and life lessons that he had inadvertently missed before due to being so engrossed in his field work. Strangely, those very days of crop failure became a period when he felt his family truly close and warm. He realized that the loss in the rice fields was not necessarily a setback, but an opportunity for him to regain loving connection. When he understood this, his face suddenly lightened, his heart became calm, and a smile returned to his lips. Mr. Lamb's story is like a gentle reminder that within every loss, there is always a hidden gain. We often suffer because we only see the loss and refuse to open our hearts to see the new things behind it. Gain or loss, after all, are just two inseparable sides of the same coin. Losing something sometimes creates space for another precious thing to enter. Perhaps a broken relationship helps us learn to love ourselves more. Perhaps a lost job leads us to a new path, a place more suitable for our own growth. Life is always fair in its own way. Sometimes we just aren't calm enough to see it. The Buddha once taught that in life there is coming together and parting. arrival and departure, flourishing and decline. Only by understanding this can the mind be at peace. When we first hear this teaching, it might seem sad because it evokes the idea of separation. But if we sit still, take a deep breath, and let our hearts settle, we will see that this teaching holds an obvious truth, which, if accepted, will free us from fear. There is nothing eternal for us to cling to, and nothing lost forever for us to despair over. Everything comes and goes like clouds floating in the sky, like waves crashing on the shore and then dissolving into the ocean. We are truly free only when we stand calmly, smiling at that flow. You might ask how one can calmly accept gain and loss when the human heart is so full of attachment. In truth, that's not something that happens overnight, but a journey of cultivation. You can start with the smallest things. When you lose an item, instead of regretting it, see it as an opportunity to practice letting go. When plans don't go as desired, instead of getting upset, see it as an opportunity to practice patience. Just practice a little letting go each day, and gradually your heart will soften, no longer stressed by life's major upheavals. Remember, the root of suffering lies not in external gains or losses, but in our internal attitude toward them. On a quiet afternoon, try sitting down, breathing slowly, closing your eyes and imagining that all your sorrows and regrets are transforming into dry leaves. Then, release them into a clear stream, letting the current carry them far away. At that moment, you will feel an emptiness in your heart, but not a painful void. Rather, a lightness, like a field after a clean, fresh rain. That's when you understand that gain or loss is ultimately just a natural rhythm. Only when you accept can you find joy. There's something important I want to whisper to you right now. Don't expect life to be perfect. Don't think that happiness only comes when everything goes your way. The truth is, even in the most ordinary things, happiness already resides. A simple meal with family, a sincere smile from a friend, waking up one morning to hear birds singing on the porch. All are great blessings. If we keep chasing after something grand, we will overlook the simple yet incredibly precious things. See normalcy as a source of peace, and your mind will no longer be swayed by gains and losses. And the sacred Buddhist teachings want you to remember that this life is a continuous flow. Every gain and loss is just a wave that rises and then disperses. Don't be afraid, and don't cling. Stand firm on the shore of mindfulness, so that when something comes, you smile and watch it arrive. When it departs, you smile and bid it farewell. This way, you will feel lighter, more serene, and freer than ever before. And when your heart is at peace, happiness will naturally return like a gentle breeze blowing through, carrying away all worries and leaving you with a clear sky. My dear friend, perhaps deep down, each of us has at some point asked ourselves, what exactly do we live for? Some people spend their entire lives chasing after fame and fortune, hoping for recognition from others, aspiring to status and power, wanting to stand very high to feel important. Yet the further we go, the heavier our feet feel. A joy that seemed grand turns out to be just a fragile, fleeting shadow, like clouds drifting in the evening sky. Fame and profit, when viewed through the eyes of Buddhist teachings, are merely illusions, like morning mist that easily dissipates when the sun rises. Yet, people often let themselves be bound tightly by that illusion, then inflict suffering upon their own lives, making their souls no longer at ease. When we sit quietly for a moment and look at nature, we see a bird flying freely in the sky, needing no titles, no medals, its wings still soaring with vitality. Or a small stream weaving through rocks, caring not who praises or criticizes, still singing its own clear song. Humans are the same. We are born free, pure, and at peace. It's only because we cling to so many calculations of gain and loss that our inherently bright hearts gradually become obscured by the dust of the world. The Buddha once taught that all phenomena are impermanent. Whatever is born will also perish. Fame and profit may shine brightly for a moment, but they are never lasting. A wise person is one who knows how to let go, to view external things lightly, in order to preserve the precious peace within their heart. Sacred Buddhist teachings wants to tell you the story of a man named Hung. He worked at a large company, holding a position everyone envied, but his heart was never satisfied. He always longed for higher promotions, to be named in recognition ceremonies, to become the most prominent person. Thus, he plunged into work like a moth to a flame, spending day and night in the office, constantly studying, rarely visiting his parents back home. Many times, his mother called to check in, but he would only give a brief answer, promising to visit another time. He thought his parents were still healthy, and in a few years, once he had a stable position, he would return to care for them. However, one day, bad news arrived. His father fell seriously ill. He rushed back to his hometown, seeing his frail father lying in a hospital bed, his breath gradually weakening. In that moment, he felt as if he had been awakened, realizing that everything he had pursued for so long was merely a golden hoop binding himself. He looked around. All his diplomas, all his titles suddenly became meaningless. The very thing he should have spent his time on was what he had neglected. After many sleepless nights, Hung decided to give up his highly admired position and return to his parents, dedicating his full attention to caring for his family. At first, his friends and colleagues looked at him with regret. Some even criticized him. But Hung smiled calmly, for he had found inner peace. That story gives us a profound lesson. Fame and profit will eventually fade, like foam on a river, like a brightly blooming flower that falls with the wind. Only family love remains. Only a peaceful mind is true blessing. Often, people think wealth is happiness, and high status is glory. But how many truly understand that when the mind is heavy with anxiety, even with abundant possessions, one still feels a lack, still feels uneasy? Conversely, those who live simply, who are content with the present, who know how to let go of what isn't important, are truly rich at heart. Happiness radiates naturally, like the cool moonlight in the night. There is a saying in the Dhammapada that living 100 years without seeing the highest Dharma is not equal to living a single day and seeing it. The highest Dharma is dwelling in mindfulness, a serene soul, and knowing what is truly most important in human life. When we chase after fame and fortune, we only live on the surface, like someone drinking salt water. The more they drink, the thirstier they become. Only when we let go does our mind gradually become lighter, truly touching the cool, refreshing stream of happiness. If you are hearing these words and feeling your life is heavy, please try to stop for a moment. Take a deep breath. Feel the gentle ebb and flow of your breath like a breeze across a field. Sit silently for a few minutes. Let your mind cease its wandering thoughts about status and wealth and return to your own breath, to the beating of your heart. Then you will see that happiness is not something distant after all. Happiness is a meal with parents by your side, the laughter of children, an afternoon stroll freely among the trees, practicing dwelling in the present, gradually letting go of unnecessary desires, is the path for our souls to open up. Each day, we can spend a few minutes chanting the Buddha's name, or simply listening to birds sing, watching flowers bloom, and then close. That is how we remind ourselves that everything in life is impermanent. And precisely because of impermanence, we must cherish the present even more. A person who has found inner peace feels content even living in a small, simple house. Conversely, a person in a grand mansion, but whose heart is restless and fears losing fame and fortune, will forever suffer. You see, life is short. What we carry with us when we close our eyes is not money or status, but loving memories, peaceful moments, the smiles we shared. So live in a way that your mind is light, so that when one day you have to let go of everything, you can smile serenely. Believe that when no longer bound by fame and fortune, your soul will be like a white dove flying high in the sky, fearless and unshackled. Then, every breath becomes a joy, every step a blossoming flower in your heart. Let a peaceful mind be your companion, for that is the true blessing of human life. And from this point, you will realize that a life of optimistic freedom is a complete life. My dear friend, in this hurried flow of life, people can accumulate a lot of wealth, fame, or status. But there is something more precious than gold and silver that not everyone is fortunate enough to possess. True friendship, a soulmate. Some say that possessions don't accompany us throughout life, but a true friend can become an eternal support, accompanying us from innocent childhood until our hair turns white and our knees grow weary. A soulmate is a rare karmic connection, a treasure not measured by money, but felt only by the heart. In life, perhaps everyone has experienced sorrows, stumbles, and shaky moments where it feels like the whole world has turned its back. It is in such times that we truly appreciate the value of a friend who knows how to listen, how to comfort, how to be by our side for no reason other than genuine affection. The Buddha once taught that in life, to meet a good friend is to meet a virtuous spiritual guide. Such a person helps us stand firm on the path of goodness, supports us when we are weak, reminds us when we err, and illuminates our minds when they are obscured. Indeed, true friendship is an incredibly precious kind of good karma that we should cherish. Try sitting down, closing your eyes for a moment, and remembering your childhood. Was there someone who sat with you under a tree, shared a warm packet of sticky rice, or ran freely in the windy evening fields? Was there someone who listened to you tell the silliest things and still smiled kindly? Those memories may seem ordinary, but they become precious gem. As we grow up, as we wander through life, we find that genuine friendship is not easy to find. Life is impermanent. People come and go. But a soulmate, if still by our side, is a blessed karmic connection that we should safeguard like a treasure. There's a simple story about Min and Kwon, two friends who grew up together from childhood in a peaceful village. They used to cut grass to herd buffalo, shared every pastry, every fragrant, ripe ear of rice. Time passed, and each took their own path, but their bond never faded. One day, Min fell on hard times, suffered business losses, and lost all his money. Acquaintances and partners gradually distanced themselves. Promises turned into silences. During that time, Kwon quietly visited, sat by his side, and offered encouragement. Kwon not only spoke words of support, but also sold his only motorbike to get some money to help Min get through his difficulties. Perhaps, in the eyes of many, that was foolishness. But in true friendship, such sacrifice is very natural. Later, Min recovered and started over. And when he recounted the story, his eyes welled up with tears as he said, "Money lost can be earned back, but a friend like Kwon, I could never find a second time in this lifetime." Through that story, we can understand that friendship is not measured by benefits, nor bound by exchange, but rather by presence, trust, and companionship in both joy and sorrow. A soulmate is someone who doesn't abandon us in times of hardship, doesn't leave when we no longer have a halo, but stays there with us, sitting in the dark, waiting for dawn. Just like the moonlight, its light becomes clearer when the sky is darkest. A true friend is that moonlight illuminating our souls during long, lonely nights. You might ask how to find such a friend in life. The answer is, instead of searching, learn to become such a friend first. If we are sincere, know how to listen, forgive, and care, then naturally karmic connections will lead us, and kindred spirits will find each other. The Buddha once taught that all karmic connections come from what we sow. If you want a kind friend, sow the seeds of kindness. If you want a trustworthy friend, sow the seeds of sincerity. And above all, remember that no matter how close a friend you have, the strongest root must still be within your own heart. Friendship is a support, but lasting peace can only come from an inner self that has been cultivated and purified. You can try a simple practice to nurture both your friendships and your soul. Each day, take a few minutes to breathe slowly. Think of the friends who have entered your life, even briefly, and send them a blessing. That gratitude is like cool water, irrigating the seeds of goodness in your heart. If you still have the chance, express your gratitude to a friend who has helped you. If the connection remains, listen to that friend when they need a shoulder. Don't wait until they are gone to regret not having cherished them sooner. In this impermanent life, nothing lasts forever, not even friendship. But precisely because of this, it becomes precious. Every moment, we still have to sit together, to share, to smile together. That is a simple yet incredibly sacred kind of happiness. Just like plum blossoms that only bloom for a short spring season. It is that brevity that makes them more beautiful, more memorable. Friendship is the same. Sometimes it's only a short stretch of the road we travel together, but that stretch illuminates an entire lifetime. My friend, open your heart to welcome good connections. Cherish those who have been and are by your side. Don't let petty selfishness, jealousy, or misunderstandings cloud that pure affection. For when we depart from this world, we cannot take wealth with us. But memories of a soulmate friendship will remain forever, like a gentle lamp illuminating our soul in some distant realm. And remember that an optimistic attitude doesn't come from relying too much on others, but from having a cornerstone within your own mind. True friendship is a treasure, but more importantly, we must know how to keep our hearts peaceful and steadfast. When we are at peace, we become a support for our friends. And when our friends are at peace, they are also a support for us. That is a wondrous mutual aid, a virtuous circle helping both to walk this impermanent path together. The philosophy this section wishes to convey is to appreciate the rare karmic connections in friendship, but also not to forget that happiness lies not in holding on, but in gratitude and appreciation in the present moment. As a reminder, live wholeheartedly for friendship today, so that tomorrow, looking back, we can smile and see that we were truly happy to have had a treasure named soulmate in our lives. My dear friend, perhaps each of us has experienced the feeling of being hurt by the words or actions of others. There are times when our hearts feel heavy just because of a thoughtless remark and seemingly small action. Yet it leaves a deep scratch on our souls. We often have a habit of engraving each other's faults, holding on to resentment, while rarely remembering the good things that person once did for us. This very tendency makes this inherently impermanent life even heavier, like adding another stone to the already overflowing bag of our minds. The ancients taught that in human relationships, if we only focus on the flaws and imperfections of others, we will never find peace in this lifetime, because each of us carries imperfections. No one is perfect. The Buddha once taught that if we constantly look at others' faults, blame them, vexations will arise. If we know how to reflect on what is good and virtuous, our hearts will blossom with peace and joy. That teaching is gentle, yet powerful enough to make us realize that holding on to resentment is the very rope that binds us, not the mistakes of others. In life, there are countless situations that make us deeply appreciate this. I want to tell you the story of Mrs. Lan and her daughter-in-law, a seemingly ordinary story that contains a profound lesson. Mrs. Lan was a kind, hard-working woman who dedicated her life to her husband and children. When her son got married, she was overjoyed, thinking she had gained another daughter in the family. But then, during a meal, simply because her daughter-in-law misspoke, uttered a thoughtless comment, Mrs. Lan felt her pride was wounded. From that day on, resentment began to smolder in her heart. She remembered that remark, using it as an excuse to look at her daughter-in-law with distant eyes. No matter how many good things her daughter-in-law did, Mrs. Lan paid no mind, only recalling that small slight and nurturing it until it grew larger and larger. Thus, the distance in the family gradually widened, and the affection they initially had grew cold. However, one day, Mrs. Lan fell seriously ill and was bedridden. It was that very daughter-in-law who devotedly cared for her, from every meal to every sleep, every drop of medicine. She took meticulous care. There were nights when Mrs. Lan turned in pain, and her daughter-in-law sat beside her, gently rubbing her back and asking how she was. Seeing the worried look in her daughter-in-law's eyes and her gentle hands, Mrs. Lan's heart suddenly broke open. She realized that she had been living in error all this time. She had allowed a thoughtless remark to overshadow her daughter-in-law's beautiful heart. She felt regret, but also relief as she uttered words of forgiveness and gratitude. In that moment, both the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law shed tears, but they were tears of reconciliation, of revived love. Hearing this story, we can see that if we only focus on remembering faults, we will overlook an entire forest of good deeds. Humans are inherently imperfect, just like a garden might have a few worm-eaten leaves. But if we let that make us forget the fragrant, fresh blossoms, aren't we depriving ourselves of joy? Forgiveness doesn't mean we forget everything, but rather that we choose to release the resentment in our hearts so our minds can be free. Clinging to blame is like holding a hot coal in your hand. It only burns you, while the other person feels nothing. Perhaps in your own life, there are relationships where sometimes just a thoughtless word has wounded your heart. It could be with parents, siblings, friends, or colleagues. You might be endlessly recalling a certain mistake, forgetting that alongside it, that person also brought you countless good things. If you cling to memories of faults, your heart will be like an abandoned garden, overgrown with weeds, obscuring even the vibrant flowers. But when you start to remember the good, you'll see that garden gradually light up, fragrances spreading, and your heart becoming lighter. The Buddha once said, "Hatred never ceases by hatred. By love alone is hatred appeased." When we hear that, it's as if we're given a key to open the door to liberation. Forgiveness is love, and that love not only brings lightness to others, but first and foremost, to ourselves. When we forgive, our hearts open, our breath lightens, a natural smile blooms on our lips, and happiness begins from there. So, how can we practice remembering the good and letting go of faults? It's really not complicated. Each day, you can sit in quietness, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. Try thinking of someone about whom you still harbor resentment. Instead of recalling their faults, think of a good deed that person once did for you. It could be a kind word, a time they helped you, or simply a smile. When you remember that, you will feel a warmth spreading in your heart. Practice this regularly, and gradually you will become accustomed to remembering the good. And once your mind is used to recalling the good, the bad, and the faults will naturally diminish, fade, and then disappear. You could also start by writing down 3 good things about someone you've been angry with. At first, it might feel difficult or forced, but with a little patience, you'll realize that everyone has bright sides, worth appreciating. And when you see that, your heart will open, no longer confined by resentment. In life, let your heart be like a clear blue lake, reflecting the sky and welcoming the wind. No matter what storm passes, that lake will eventually settle. If we keep remembering the storms, we will never see the beauty of the sky reflected. But if we know how to embrace and then let go, we will find peace and freedom in our hearts. My dear friend, life is so short. Don't let small mistakes weigh down your heart. Practice remembering the good. Forgive what needs to be forgiven. When you offer compassion, you are the first to receive peace. For forgiveness is not just a gift for others, but the greatest gift we give ourselves. And then, when night falls, as you sit quietly in your silent room, try to smile and softly say to yourself, I am grateful for all that has come, both the good and the mistakes, because everything has helped me grow, helped me learn how to love. That is the moment of your true happiness. Then you will see all worries fly away like birds, leaving in your soul a bright, light, and loving sky. My dear friend, in this life, perhaps each of us has experienced the feeling of being scrutinized, judged, and talked about by those around us. Sometimes you do something very well, yet someone still criticizes it. Sometimes you try your best to be loved and recognized, but ultimately receive only suspicious glances or unpleasant gossip. And so, you fall into a dilemma, caught between wanting to live as yourself and wanting to please others. That is a great spiritual struggle that often leaves people unsure of their true nature, unsure of their true selves. The ancients had a saying, "The world's tongue is harsher than the wind. The wind blows and then leaves, but the world's words cling like a shadow, sometimes praising, sometimes criticizing, sometimes exalting, sometimes disparaging." If we let our minds be swept away by such praise and blame, we are no different from a dry leaf on the water, drifting wherever the wind takes it, completely losing our autonomy. In Buddhist scriptures, the world-honored one taught that a wise person is not swayed by praise or criticism, like a mountain standing firm against a storm. This teaching is simple yet profound, reminding us that the root of happiness lies not in worldly recognition, but in the peace and freedom within our own minds. Have you ever felt tired of constantly trying to be a different version of yourself to please someone? Have you ever suppressed your hobbies or given up on your dreams just to avoid being laughed at? And after all that, did you truly feel happier? Or did you just feel increasingly alienated from yourself? That is humanity's greatest suffering, living by the tongues of others, forgetting that we ourselves are the ones who need to be listened to, who need to be understood. There's a story about Ms. Mai, a petite woman from a peaceful countryside village. She had loved cooking vegetarian food since childhood, believing that vegetarianism was not only good for health, but also a way to sow seeds of compassion in life. With a little capital, she decided to open a small vegetarian eatery in a market corner. On opening day, instead of receiving support, she was met with many criticisms. Some said, "What's the point of vegetarian food? No one will come to eat it. It'll close soon." Others scoffed. In a bustling market full of meat and fish, who would sit down to eat vegetables? Those words initially disheartened her. But deep down, she knew that what she was doing had meaning. She cooked each dish with love, creating a serene and peaceful space so that anyone who entered could feel a lightness in their soul. Initially, the eatery was quite empty, but she didn't get discouraged. Day after day, she persistently cooked, persistently smiled, persistently sowed each seed of goodness. Then one day, a worker stopped by, and after finishing the vegetarian meal, found his stomach light and his spirit relaxed. He invited his friends. Gradually, word spread that Ms. May's vegetarian eatery was both delicious and peaceful, and more people came each day. Some busy people would stop by after work just for a quiet meal, away from the noisy market sounds and the pungent smell of meat and fish. And so, from being criticized, Ms. Mai's vegetarian eatery suddenly became a familiar destination, bringing joy and health to many people. If Miss Mai had given up back then because of the initial ridicule, perhaps no one would remember that small vegetarian eatery in the market corner today. But because she believed in herself, believed in what she was doing, and persistently lived true to her aspiration, she reaped the rewards. That story teaches us one thing. Praise and criticism are just like fleeting gusts of wind. If we let them affect us, we only grow tired. What's important is that we truly understand what we want, believe in our own worth, and live fully as ourselves. In daily life, everyone can practice living as themselves through small things. That could be daring to express your opinion without fear of ridicule, daring to choose a simple lifestyle amidst a noisy, competitive society, or simply daring to admit that you're tired and need rest instead of trying to maintain a good image in the eyes of others. The Buddha taught that one is one's own island, one's own refuge. Rely on yourself, not on others. When we truly live like that, we will feel incredibly light. There's a small practice you can apply daily to cultivate peace. Stop for a few minutes, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and listen to yourself. Ask yourself what truly makes you happy. What is your true nature? When you listen enough, you will realize that happiness doesn't come from pleasing others, but from the harmony between your own heart and actions. If today you are hurt by criticism, let the wind carry it away. If today you feel lost because others don't understand you, turn inward and ask yourself if you are truly living in accordance with your own nature. Because when you are yourself, this life will naturally become beautiful. No matter who praises or criticizes, you will remain as steadfast as a mountain. No matter who is noisy outside, you will remain as silent as a lake in the early morning. And when you can live like that, you not only bring happiness to yourself, but also inspire those around you. So don't fear the world's gossip. And don't try to become a copy to please anyone else. Be your unique and complete original self, because within that original self, all the most beautiful things that life has given you are already contained. Like a lotus in the mud, it doesn't need to flaunt its fragrance or justify itself. It still shines and beautifies life. Let me remind you of a small thing. Human life is inherently impermanent. There is praise and blame, love and hate, but all will eventually drift away like white clouds in the sky. The only thing that remains is whether your mind is at peace. And when you are at peace, you will find yourself happy. When you are happy, the world around you naturally becomes gentle. Have you ever wondered why your heart often feels heavy? Even with enough food and clothes and laughter in your home, your heart still cannot find peace. Sometimes we wake up in the morning, the golden sunlight already bright on the porch, birds still chirping on the branches, yet our hearts feel as heavy as if carrying a stone. We think of everything: household chores, social matters, our children's affairs, our loved ones' concerns, and even matters far, far away, that have nothing to do with us. These very thoughts exhaust us, making it difficult to live peacefully. One thing many people rarely realize is that in this life, there are three types of matters: our own affairs, others' affairs, and the affairs of heaven and earth. If we know how to distinguish them clearly, only fulfill our own duties, let others handle their parts, and let go of what belongs to heaven and earth, our hearts will naturally lighten. But unfortunately, most of life's worries arise because we forget that boundary. We like to meddle in others' affairs, worry on behalf of heaven and earth, while not even fully completing our own tasks. In the scriptures, the Buddha once taught that whoever knows how to let go will be as light as a cloud in the sky. Whoever clings tightly will suffer like holding fire in their heart. Reflecting on these words, we clearly see that suffering largely comes not from external circumstances, but from the way we carry too much. There are burdens that don't belong to us, yet we still try to shoulder them all. Try to imagine life as a river. Each person has their own boat. Our own affair is to navigate our boat steadily, so it doesn't hit hidden rocks or sink in big waves. Others' affairs are their boats. They must row themselves and choose their own direction. And the affairs of heaven and earth are the wind, the rain, the tides, which no one can control. If we constantly worry about others' boats drifting off course or fret about the weather, our own boat will drift. Who will suffer the disadvantage then? Only us. In everyday life, we easily fall into a very familiar trap. We think that worrying for and helping others shows care. But the line between caring and meddling in others' affairs is very thin. Our loved ones, our friends, even our neighbors, all have their own lives, their own choices. If we embrace all of it, it's no different from carrying 100 burdens on our shoulders that aren't ours. Sacred Buddhist teachings wants to tell you a small story that might make us reflect on ourselves. In a peaceful countryside village lived a man named Tuan, who was generally considered kind but often concerned himself with other people's business. When his neighbors fixed their gate, he offered his opinions. When they raised chickens, he suggested how to feed them. Even when a husband and wife next door argued, he would stand outside, deep in thought, then relay the story to others. He believed he was caring for and worrying about his neighbors, but in reality, his heart was full of vexation. Every day, Tuan couldn't find peace. Whenever he heard a hammer next door, his heart would race. If he saw his neighbors coming home late from work, he would instinctively get annoyed, thinking they were irresponsible. Gradually, these concerns exhausted him, leading to many frustrations within his family. One time, when he offered a bit too much advice about his neighbors' affairs, they told him directly, "You take care of your own home. I'll handle my family's business." At that moment, Tuan froze, his face reddening with embarrassment, but his heart was sad. That night, lying in bed, he kept thinking, and then, like a flash of light in his mind, he realized how tired he had been, living all this time, taking on tasks that weren't his. He hadn't even fully taken care of his own affairs, yet he liked to get involved in others. From then on, he vowed to focus only on doing his own work well, ensuring his family's peace, and handling his job responsibly, leaving others to bear their own burdens. And indeed, from that day, his heart felt much lighter. He would just smile when he saw his neighbors having issues, silently wishing them well. That very act of letting go brought him a tranquil life. Mr. Tuan's story is probably similar to many of ours. How many times have we caused ourselves suffering just because we like to meddle, gossip, or worry about things that don't belong to us? In truth, everyone's life has its own lessons, its own karma. If we keep interfering, not only do we not help, but sometimes we even complicate matters further. Our own affairs are the only things we can control. That is how we live, how we think, how we face suffering. The Buddha once said, "By oneself is evil done. By oneself is one defiled. By oneself is evil avoided. By oneself is one purified. Purity and impurity depend on oneself. No one can purify another." These words remind us that no one can do our own work for us. If we know how to turn inward and care for our own minds, cultivating goodness in every thought, that is what is most important. As for others' affairs, we can show concern and share, but remember that we cannot live their lives for them. Everyone has their own path, their own karmic connections. Let them walk their own way, bear their own responsibilities, and learn the lessons life has for them. We can only stand by, offer advice if they need it, or a helping hand if they fall. But don't embrace their entire journey in your heart. The affairs of heaven and earth are even vaster, even beyond our reach. Weather changes, epidemics spread, natural disasters strike. These are things humans cannot control. If we keep worrying about matters beyond our capacity, it's like trying to hold grains of sand in the wind, instead of complaining or fearing. Learn to accept. For heaven and earth have their laws, and karmic connections have their workings. Knowing how to go with the flow, we will feel lighter. Once we have distinguished these three types of matters, we will see how much less vexation life holds. We only need to worry about our own affairs, doing our part well with all mindfulness and love. As for the rest, let everything flow naturally. It's like sitting by a river. We only need to row our own boat. We cannot row for everyone else. There's a simple practice to keep your heart at peace concerning these three types of matters. Stop and ask yourself, does this belong to me? If it's your own business, dedicate all your effort to it. If it's someone else's business, learn to respect it, only offering support when they truly need it. If it's the business of heaven and earth, let it go, accepting it with a calm attitude. With consistent practice, you will find life much lighter and happier. Try sitting still, closing your eyes, taking a deep breath, then exhaling, letting go of worries about others, letting go of even the troubles that aren't yours. Imagine a kite flying, its string released so it can be carried by the wind. At that moment, your heart will be as expansive as the sky. Finally, remember that life is impermanent. Everything comes and goes like clouds drifting across mountains. If we constantly cling and interfere, we only invite more suffering. Only by knowing the boundaries of these three types of matters can we truly live optimistically, letting all worries fly away with the wind. And on that journey, every step, every inhalation and exhalation can become a lesson in awakening. Happiness is not when we control everything, but when we know how to let go of what doesn't belong to us. Like a flower blooming in a green field, it doesn't worry about wind or rain. It simply fulfills its role as a flower. radiating fragrance, displaying its beauty, living fully in the present moment. Humans are the same. Do your part, and let karmic connections and heaven and earth arrange the rest. When we understand this, we will find life suddenly becomes light as a breeze, clear as the sky, and serene as a continuously flowing river. My dear friend, there's a strange thing in life that perhaps each of us sometimes inadvertently forgets. People often easily smile at strangers, offer sweet words to friends, but are quick to snap and get annoyed with their own family members. Parents, spouses, children, those who love us most, often become the ones who bear all the pressure, all the sadness and anger that we don't know how else to release. Perhaps you've been like that too. When tired from work, having suffered many hurts out in the world, you return home and lash out, scolding a comment from your mother, a small action from your child, or a spouse's oversight. And then, only when they are gone, do we suddenly realize that in this life, there is no place as warm as family. The Buddha once taught that in the three realms, there is no place as peaceful as family, and loved ones are the most precious karmic connection we need to cherish. We often chase after external things, endlessly seeking comfort from friends or society. But few realize that parents are the most solid support. Family is the shelter where we find refuge amidst all storms. Yet, paradoxically, these very loved ones suffer the most hurt from us. The sacred Buddhist teachings recall a woman named Ms. Hoa. Her story is a testament to the thoughtlessness that any of us can easily fall into. Ms. Hoa had an elderly mother over 70 who lived with her children and grandchildren in a small house in a peaceful countryside village. Her mother often complained, sometimes about back pain, other times worrying about her children and grandchildren not being settled, and occasionally revisiting old stories. At those times, instead of listening, Ms. Hoa often felt annoyed and irritated. She thought that her mother, being old, should just be quiet, not talk so much, not complain anymore. Every time her mother spoke, she would snap, "Mother, you complain all day long. Don't you ever get tired of talking?" Her mother would just remain silent, lower her head, and then quietly go about doing small tasks around the house. Time passed like this, day after day, until one day, her mother became seriously ill. And not long after, she passed away forever. At that moment, Ms. Hoa felt devastated. The house became empty. The front yard, where her mother used to pick vegetables, was now silent. There was no one left for her to hear petty complaints. No one asked her if she was tired from work today. And no one reminded her to wear a warm coat when the weather turned cold. As countless memories flooded back, she truly understood the pain of loss. She realized that her mother's daily complaints were, in fact, just her way of seeking attention, her way of connecting with her child. But due to her thoughtlessness, she hadn't understood. Her regret was immense. She wished she could turn back time to once again sit and listen to her mother complain, to smile and say, "I'm here, Mom. You can talk. I'll listen." But it was all too late. Ms. Hoa's story is not unique. So many children take their parents' presence for granted, only to weep in endless regret when they are gone. Human life is short. Existence is impermanent. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? Therefore, having parents means having happiness. Having family means having a peaceful home to return to. Don't wait until only a photo remains on the altar to realize that family is the most serene sanctuary in life. The ancients said, "To have parents is a blessing. To have none is like a kite with a broken string." Parents are the roots. Family is a shelter. No matter how far we go, whether successful or failed, that place remains a safe haven. Yet many people easily hurt those they love. Sometimes it's just a harsh word, a frown, a moment of snapping. But for parents, for loved ones, these are wounds to the heart that are hard to heal, because their love for us is so immense, so forgiving. Each time we hurt them, they silently endure it. If possible, try each day to spend a little mindfulness, observing your attitude towards your loved ones. When you are about to get angry with your parents, pause for a breath and ask yourself, if my mother weren't here tomorrow, would I still want to say this? When you want to blame your spouse or children, remember that they are precious karmic connections you've met in this life. Patience, listening, and compassion will transform your family into a place of peace. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught that conquering thousands of armies is not equal to conquering oneself. To conquer oneself is the greatest victory. And sometimes, conquering oneself is not about grand achievements, but about restraining a harsh word or yielding a little to loved ones. Because that victory keeps the family warm and the home filled with laughter. Perhaps you will ask how to truly cherish family. The answer is very simple. Start with small things. A hug for your mother, a word of thanks for your father, a smile for your spouse, a word of encouragement for your children. Sit together during meals to hear your father tell old stories, to hear your mother's gentle reminders, to share joys and sorrows together. Those simple moments, once lost, you will never find again. And if you find much resentment in your heart, try meditation. Sit down, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and reflect on your parents' love, on the image of your family. You will feel your heart soften. Tears may fall, but they will be tears of healing. When your heart has been refreshed by love, you will no longer want to hurt loved ones, but only to cherish and love them. Human life is short and impermanent, like a cloud drifting across the sky. Today the sun shines brightly. Tomorrow it may be obscured by clouds. Today your loved ones are by your side. Tomorrow they may only be in your memories. Therefore, happiness is not something distant, but precisely being together in the present, hearing seemingly trivial complaints, sharing simple meals. True happiness is having parents, having a family to return to. My dear friend, I hope that, from Ms. Hoa's story, you will awaken so as not to fall into the same trap of belated regret. Family is the most peaceful place, the most solid foundation in human life. Don't hurt those you love. Cherish every moment you still have them by your side. Love while you still can, so that one day, when you look back, your heart will be light and at peace, free from the scars of regret. And when you know how to cherish your family, you will see that this life is already complete. Happiness has always been within reach. A human life is like a silent journey through a vast land. Sometimes that journey is filled with laughter, sometimes it carries tears, and sometimes boundless silence. We embark on this human journey from birth, and no one knows where the final stop will be. Throughout that journey, how many faces will appear? How many figures will pass by? Some stay for a very long time. Some quietly get off the bus at some stop and disappear into the flow of life. What hurts us most is often not the departure, but when we haven't had a chance to say thank you, haven't had a chance to cherish the moments we shared. If we are willing to listen to our hearts, we will realize that all encounters are karmic connections. Whether long or short, sweet or bitter, all are worthy of gratitude. Those who board our life's bus, stay for a while, and then leave, are contributing to teaching us lessons about impermanence, about love, and about letting go. The Buddha once taught that human life is just a long dream. There is coming together and parting, arrival and departure. Understanding that we will not blame nor resent, but only smile, like the wind blowing across green fields, like golden leaves falling onto a lake's surface, gently and calmly. The story of Mr. Bin and his old friend is a testament. In their youth, he and his friend stood shoulder to shoulder, sharing many dreams and aspirations. But then, life's turns led each to a different path. Youth faded. Black hair turned gray. They could only occasionally mention each other through distant memories. When he heard that his dear friend had left this temporary world, Mr. Bin silently shed tears. Yet, amidst those tears, he smiled. He softly said, "Thank you for accompanying me on a part of life's journey." It was a short sentence, but contained a profound philosophy. It reminds us that people coming and going is a natural order. What we can do is cherish the moments that were, instead of blaming or clinging. Perhaps each of us has an old friend in life. It could be a childhood friend, a former teacher, a once close colleague, or even a lover who passed through our youth. All of them have been part of our journey for a time, leaving indelible marks. When they leave, our hearts often ache. But that pain, if illuminated by an optimistic gaze, will transform into gratitude and peace. We learn to smile, to wave goodbye, just like bidding farewell to a bird flying towards a distant sky. In the light of mindfulness, we understand that no one accompanies us forever. Even parents, siblings, spouses, or children will one day stop at some station on life's journey. If we live with clinging, we will suffer from loss. But if we know how to view life with the eyes of impermanence, we will know how to cherish every handhold, every smile, every present moment. Because this very moment is the true gift. The friend we cherish might be sitting beside us today, but tomorrow they may not be there. And we also don't know how much time we ourselves have left to continue with anyone. Try to imagine a late afternoon as the sun gradually sets behind the bamboo grove. The cicada's chirping grows fainter in the quiet space. Sitting there, we remember those who have passed through our lives. Some left us joy, some left us wounds, but ultimately, all were karmic connections. If these encounters hadn't happened, we wouldn't have grown as we have today. So why not bow our heads in gratitude instead of clinging to resentment in our hearts. The Buddha taught that life is impermanent. All gatherings are due to karmic conditions. When conditions are sufficient, there is a meeting. When conditions are exhausted, there is separation. Nothing lasts forever, not even sorrow. Therefore, optimism is knowing how to view loss through the light of love. Optimism is not pretending there's no pain, but daring to smile even through tears, as Mr. Bin did. It is this optimism that softens the heart, giving us the strength to continue on our long journey. If you are losing someone, try to sit down, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and then softly say in your heart, "Thank you for coming into my life. Thank you for walking a part of the path with me." At that moment, you will find that the pain in your heart is no longer sharp, but transforms into a gentle remembrance, a gift of memory. Practicing this is meditation. It is letting go. It is self-healing. Human life is like a journey where we are merely passengers. We cannot control who stays or who leaves, but we can choose our attitude toward living. A pessimist will complain about being left behind. An optimist will smile, grateful for the precious moments they had. Let every farewell become an occasion for gratitude, every loss a lesson to love more deeply. And then, when we ourselves prepare to disembark from this journey, we will also hope that those who remain don't grieve too much, but only smile gently and whisper thanks for having traveled a part of life's path with us. That is the lightest and most serene way to depart. Therefore, live optimistically, knowing how to cherish and be grateful. Don't cling only to the pain when someone leaves. Instead, look broader to see that life is inherently a flow of impermanence. People come and go, but the love that remains will warm our hearts throughout the long journey. When our minds know how to let go, when our hearts know gratitude, then the journey of human life, whether short or long, will be filled with happiness and peace, like a bird flying freely in the vast sky. My dear friend, life is a wondrous journey. Every stop, every encounter, every separation is an indispensable part. Smile and accept, open your heart, and give thanks, so that this journey is no longer a series of exhausting days, but becomes a peaceful song. And as you sit on that journey, remember that optimism is the guiding light that allows you to release all worries to the wind, living a complete and happy life in every present breath. In this ever-changing life, perhaps each of us has at least once felt overwhelmed by losses and pains that seemed insurmountable. People often say life is like a cup of tea. When you first take a sip, the bitter taste hits your tongue, making you grimace uncomfortably. But if you patiently wait a little longer for the flavor to settle, you'll discover a gentle, sweet taste gradually spreading, lingering in your throat, making your heart feel light. That is also how life teaches us the art of letting go. Today's bitterness may not be the end of suffering, but sometimes it is the beginning of tomorrow's sweetness. Many people fear suffering, fear loss, fear facing unwanted things. But perhaps these very pains are life's greatest teachers. The Buddha once taught that it is in suffering that people have the opportunity for enlightenment. Because if life were only full of conveniences and joy, we would easily fall asleep in false happiness, failing to recognize the true value of a loving heart and a soul that knows how to let go. Only by experiencing suffering do we truly understand what peace and joy mean, and only then do we appreciate every moment of serenity. Ms. Lian, a simple woman from a countryside village, once went through days when it seemed there was no way to live. The marriage in which she had placed all her trust and her entire heart suddenly shattered when she discovered her husband's betrayal. That day, her entire world seemed to crumble. Through long nights, with tears soaking her pillow, all she saw before her was darkness, resentment, and bitterness. She questioned what she had done wrong, blamed unfair destiny, and wanted to give up. People say wounds of the heart are the hardest to heal. And indeed, she lived those days like a lost soul. But then, amidst that darkness, one day she sat on her porch, looking out at the overgrown garden. The wind blew, carrying the scent of some blooming wildflowers. She suddenly realized that whether anyone cared for them or not, the flowers still bloomed, still displayed their colors to heaven and earth. So why couldn't she live like those flowers? Still peacefully emitting fragrance, still reaching for the light, even though life had not been kind. That thought was like a small flame ignited in her heart. She began to learn how to let go. At first, it was just letting go of unnecessary tears, letting go of useless reproaches. Then she learned to forgive, not because the betrayer deserved forgiveness, but because she didn't want to imprison her own life in the dungeon of resentment. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but accepting the truth and allowing oneself to move forward. She decided to start over, opening a small flower shop right in front of her house. Every morning, as her hands touched each flower and their fragrance filled the space, she felt a simple peace. From within her suffering, she found a new path, a path of spiritual freedom. People look at her today and see a radiant, serene woman, her smile always bright. Few know that behind that smile lies an entire long journey from within suffering to emergence. Her story is like a reminder that today's bitterness is not necessarily misfortune, but perhaps the very soil for the seeds of happiness to sprout. When we know how to let go, we also simultaneously know how to sow a new future for ourselves. In life, there will be times when we are put into unwanted situations. It could be betrayal in love, the loss of a loved one, failure at work, or sudden illnesses. At those times, our hearts feel squeezed, our minds are in turmoil. But if we keep clinging to the past, if we refuse to let go, we will forever live in darkness. Letting go doesn't mean giving up, but learning to put down the burden, to step lightly forward. The Buddha taught that all suffering originates from clinging. We suffer because we cling tightly to something, constantly demanding that everything go our way. But life is inherently impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. When we learn to let go, that's also when we open our hearts to welcome new opportunities. It's like when your hand is tightly gripping a stone. You can't hold another flower. Only when you release the stone does your hand have space for the fragrance and beauty of the flower to spread. If you are going through some pain, try sitting down quietly, taking a deep breath, and then exhaling slowly. With each breath, remind yourself that everything will pass, and the pain will eventually subside. Like a storm, no matter how fierce, it must eventually stop to make way for a clear sky. You can practice every day, spending a few minutes sitting still, listening to your heart, observing each thought as it comes and goes without clinging. Then you will find that you are no longer controlled by the pain, but can gradually smile at it. Ms. Lian's story is also a lesson for each of us. Instead of letting pain drown you, turn it into motivation to rise. Instead of resenting, choose to forgive so your heart can be at peace. Instead of constantly looking to the past, turn your eyes to the future, where flowers are waiting for you to nurture and bloom. There is something miraculous. When we choose to let go, we find life becomes lighter. We see that happiness lies not in holding on tightly, but in the ability to smile at all changes. Bitterness eventually turns sweet. Storms give way to warm sunshine, and all darkness dissipates when light appears. My dear friend, if today you are going through difficult days, please believe that you are not alone. Life always has unexpected turns, and sometimes it is precisely from within suffering that we find a bright path. Let go of what has passed, embrace the present with an open heart, and sow happiness for tomorrow. Human life is also like a cup of tea. Patiently take another sip, and you will find the gentle sweetness waiting there. And then, with every step, every breath, you will realize that happiness lies not in tomorrow or yesterday, but is present right in this moment, when we know how to let go and live fully in the present. That is the art of letting go, the path that leads us to peace and freedom amidst the impermanent flow of life. Sometimes, amidst life's hustle and bustle, we often sigh and wonder why the things we wish for don't come, while unwanted things keep appearing as challenges. Some blame fate. Others sadly believe life is unfair. But from a Buddhist perspective, life is like a river, sometimes gentle and clear, sometimes fiercely turbulent. And our task is not to try to change that flow, but to learn to go with the flow, to know how to adapt and be at peace in every moment. Going with the flow doesn't mean giving up or being indifferent, but knowing that both favorable and adverse conditions have their own value. Both are fertile ground for the growth of the soul. When we learn to see everything as an opportunity to understand, to transform, it is then that we open the door to optimism, to a lighter life. Humans often have the habit of coercing and wishing for everything to happen exactly as they desire. We want exams to be passed, work to be smooth, relationships to be solid, families to be perfectly happy. But life never operates according to a script we've already written. The Buddha once taught that all phenomena arise from conditions. Everything comes into being due to conditions. When conditions are sufficient, it exists. When conditions are exhausted, it dissolves. Nothing is fixed or immutable. When we try to hold on to what doesn't belong to us, it's like clutching a handful of sand. The tighter we squeeze, the more sand slips through our fingers. But if we know how to loosen our grip and let the current of life carry us naturally, our souls find peace without entanglement. That is the spirit of going with the flow, a secret to living peacefully that not everyone fully understands. Try to imagine a young man named Hai. That year, he placed all his hopes on the university entrance exam. Day and night, he diligently studied, nurturing the dream of changing his life with a bachelor's degree. However, the results were not as expected. He failed. The moment he received his score report, his heart clenched. His whole world seemed to collapse. In the eyes of his family and neighbors, he felt incredibly ashamed, disappointed, and frustrated. Sometimes he blamed himself for being incompetent. Sometimes he blamed life for being so harsh. But then, through those agonizing days, another light dawned. He realized that the path to university was not the only way. By chance, a friend invited him to learn motorcycle repair. At first, he was hesitant, finding the trade difficult, his hands covered in oil and grease, not respected by anyone. But gradually, amidst the clinking of tools and the strong smell of oil, he found joy. His hands became skillful. His eyes brightened when he saw a broken vehicle brought back to life. Day by day, he saved up to open a small roadside shop. Customers gradually increased, and his life became stable. Then he married and raised his children to be good people. People looking at him today would never guess he was the young man who stumbled on his university exams years ago. Hai's story is a simple yet profound testament to going with the flow. If he had continued to resent his fate that day, if he hadn't opened his heart to embrace a different turn, perhaps his life would have taken a darker path. His adverse circumstance of failing the university exam became the very soil for him to find new opportunities. Like a seed, only when buried in the dark earth can it sprout and reach for the light. Human life is the same. Moments that seem like failure, that seem like loss, are precisely when the seeds of wisdom and resilience are sown. If we know how to live by adapting to circumstances, we no longer fear adversity, because we understand that every incident is a teacher showing us how to grow. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. The profound meaning is that happiness doesn't lie in achieving what we want, but in accepting the present as it is. When we know how to go with the flow, we will see that every raindrop, every passing breeze, every season of blooming flowers carries its own unique beauty, its own lesson. There is nothing to force, for everything comes and goes according to karmic conditions. Just as in spring, we enjoy the blooming peach blossoms, in summer, we admire the fragrant lotus. In autumn, golden leaves fall, and winter brings white snow. No season is like another, yet every season is beautiful. If human life is viewed in this way, the heart will no longer be saddened when desires are not met, nor overly distressed when having to part with something cherished. A person who understands going with the flow is one who realizes that happiness is not about clinging, but about opening one's heart. We may not achieve the grand things we dream of, but we find simple joy in the most ordinary things, such as an afternoon spent sitting on the porch, listening to birds sing on the branches, or a family gathered around a simple meal. When our hearts know acceptance and love, whether conditions are favorable or adverse, we still feel light. Have you ever wondered why you often suffer and hurt so much? In truth, most suffering stems from the mind's demands. We wish our beloved would stay forever. But when karmic ties end, they depart. We wish our work would always be smooth, but challenges come and cause us distress. We wish for abundant health, but then the body inevitably weakens with age. If we cling tightly to those desires, it's like binding ourselves with an invisible rope of suffering. Conversely, when we know how to go with the flow, our hearts will be at ease, because we understand that everything has a reason to exist and also a reason to depart. Practicing going with the flow is not difficult. We just need to learn to let go of what is beyond our control. When encountering favorable circumstances, we are grateful and appreciative. When encountering adverse circumstances, we view them as lessons without complaint or self-reproach. Each morning, take a few moments to sit still. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly, and remind yourself that today you only need to live wholeheartedly. And as for the outcome, go with the flow. When your heart is calm, you will realize that life is inherently beautiful. We just need to change our perspective. You see, going with the flow is not some profound philosophy, but simply a light-hearted way of living in everyday life, like Hai, who went from despair to peace, not because he found a perfect path, but because he opened his heart to embrace what seemed like adverse circumstances. When we understand that both favorable and unfavorable conditions are precious, all suffering transforms into lessons. Life is short. Instead of complaining, smile, because every step, every breath is a gift of the present. And you know what? When we live by going with the flow, our hearts will naturally open wide. Our souls will be as free as clouds drifting in the sky, unburdened, untroubled, with only peace remaining in every moment. Perhaps in the hurried pace of modern life, we easily get caught in a spiral of never-ending desires. Every day, people throw themselves into work to make a living, striving for a bigger house, a better car, more savings. But then, the more they accumulate, the more they feel a lack. The more they possess, the more restless they become. That is the paradox of our time. Much money, but little peace. Many possessions, yet a heart full of emptiness. Sometimes, standing in a house full of conveniences, we still feel lonely. Sometimes, at a table laden with delicacies, we still swallow our food blandly, finding no pleasure. The ancients had a saying, "Knowing contentment brings constant joy." Knowing enough doesn't mean giving up everything, but learning to recognize what is enough for oneself. What is the limit at which we can smile peacefully? Happiness does not inherently lie in having a lot, but in being able to appreciate what we already have. Enough food, enough clothes, enough love. Just that much is already a priceless gift bestowed by life. I remember the story of Uncle Nam's family in a small rural area. Uncle Nam was not wealthy, nor did he have a high-paying job. His family lived solely by cultivating rice and raising chickens and ducks. Their old, 3-room tiled roof house leaked in the rainy season and was hot in the summer. But it was always full of laughter. In the mornings, Uncle Nam went to work in the fields. Aunt Nam tended to their small garden, and the children went to the village school. In the evenings, the whole family gathered around a simple meal: vegetable soup, braised fish, and a plate of pickled eggplant. It wasn't extravagant or luxurious, but everyone found it delicious. Because in every meal, there was love, sweat, and the effort of the whole family. After eating, Uncle Nam would often tell old stories, the children's chirping laughter, and the sounds of insects from the garden blended with the lively chatter inside the house. At night, everyone lay on their bamboo bed, listening to the wind blow through the rows of betel trees, hearing the geckos chirp. Just that much, and their hearts were peaceful and calm. One time, a friend from the city came to visit. Looking at the old house, the friend sighed and said, "Uncle, why don't you try to earn more money, build a big, beautiful house like everyone else, and buy a large TV, a new model refrigerator? Living like this is too lacking." Uncle Num just smiled kindly and said, "My friend, what is enough differs for everyone. For me, having fields to work in the morning, children and grandchildren gathered around in the evening, and my wife by my side at night, that's enough. I don't need more to call it happiness. If I keep chasing after what I don't have, my heart will never be at peace." Upon hearing this, the friend suddenly fell silent, realizing that amidst the noisy city, he had never experienced such peaceful moments. That simple story offers us a profound lesson. Happiness doesn't need to be distant or grand. It lies right in the small things of everyday life. We often dream of a glorious tomorrow, but miss the joy of today. We wish for a lot of money to buy conveniences, but forget that a simple meal with family can sometimes be more precious than everything. When the mind doesn't know contentment, no matter how much it has, it still feels a lack. When the mind knows contentment, even a simple life is filled with happiness. The Buddha once taught, "One who knows contentment is happy even lying on the ground. One who is not content is dissatisfied, even in heaven." This teaching is not just for pretty words, but a truth of life. Knowing contentment is the key that opens the door to peace. A person with little who knows contentment always feels joyful. A person with much who still doesn't feel enough will always suffer. Like someone thirsty who can never drink enough if their heart perpetually yearns. In truth, living simply doesn't mean lacking. It means not letting your heart be entangled by too many things. In a garden, wildflowers bloom beside roses. Each species has its own beauty. But if we only obsessively search for roses and disdain the wildflowers, we will miss an entire sky of fragrances and colors. Life is the same. If we only chase after distant things and forget simple joys, we will live our entire lives in exhaustion. A hot cup of tea in the morning, a gentle breeze blowing across the porch, a child's smile, a word of comfort from a loved one, all are happiness if we know how to stop and feel them. Many people often ask how to live simply, how to know contentment in a society that constantly pushes us to run faster, to have more. The answer lies in how we perceive everything. If we know how to listen to ourselves, how to turn inward, how to cherish what we have, life will become lighter. Practicing meditation, practicing mindful breathing, is also a way to cultivate contentment. When sitting still, inhaling and exhaling, we realize we are still breathing, still alive, still loved. That alone is a great blessing. Happiness is not far away, but right in our every conscious breath. If one day you feel too exhausted by the rat race, try stopping, closing your eyes, breathing deeply and asking yourself what you truly need to be happy. The answer might surprise you because it is often very simple. Sometimes it's just a small home, a soulmate, a cozy meal with family. These are things that money cannot buy. Only love and appreciation can sustain them. Practice letting go of unnecessary desires. Reduce a little comparison, a little strife, a little rivalry. When the mind is light, we will find happiness very close. Life is inherently impermanent. What is here today may be gone tomorrow. Material possessions may be abundant today, but may be gone tomorrow. Only love and inner peace are eternal assets. Don't spend a lifetime chasing material things and forget simple joys. Therefore, knowing contentment is the secret to living peacefully. Knowing contentment helps us escape the spiral of never being satisfied. Knowing contentment helps us realize that happiness is not in the future, but present in every moment. Practice living simply, like a flower blooming naturally in the sun and wind, like a river flowing freely between its banks. In that simplicity, we find ourselves again, find the peace already present in our souls. When you sit back, listen to the wind, gaze at the sky, and smile at loved ones, you are touching happiness. And at that moment, you will realize that you don't need to have a lot to be happy. You just need to know contentment and appreciation, and happiness will be complete. My dear friend, on this hurried journey to find happiness and peace in life, have you ever noticed that just a small smile is enough to brighten an entire gloomy day? There's an old saying our ancestors often repeated: a smile is worth 10 doses of tonic. Indeed, a smile is not just an expression of joy, but also a miraculous medicine that can heal silent wounds in the heart and dispel the clouds of sorrow covering it. When life sweeps us away, when our weary shoulders bear the burdens of making a living, sometimes we forget that we still possess a very close treasure: a smile. There are days when, after a hard day's work, you return home, your mind still heavy with worries. But then suddenly, an innocent child flashes a bright smile, and you feel your heart soften. That smile is like the morning sun piercing through thick clouds, bringing a miraculous warmth. The Buddha once taught that a happy soul radiates from a genuine smile. That smile not only comforts oneself, but also spreads to everyone around, like a cool breeze soothing the sweltering heat of summer. Try sitting down for a bit, taking a deep breath, and smiling. Can you feel the tension in your body gradually release? A gentle smile makes every cell in the body feel soothed, like cool water flowing through a dry field, reviving new life. In meditation practice, masters often advise smiling at oneself in the mirror every morning. That is not a meaningless act, but a way to start a new day with peaceful energy. When you smile, you're sowing a seed of happiness for yourself and for others. The story of little Tao might help us better understand that miraculous power. Tao is only 5 years old, living in a small rural village. Her family's life is not well off. Her parents work hard every day to provide for their children. There were days when her parents returned home looking exhausted, their eyes dark-rimmed from hard labor, their shoulders heavy with worry. But strangely, As soon as Thao ran out to hug them and flashed an innocent, bright smile, all the tension within them seemed to wash away. The child's clear laughter was like a resonating chime, awakening long-forgotten joy in her parents' hearts. Sometimes, just that small smile made all the weariness from the fields and construction sites seemingly vanish. We see that a smile makes no distinction between rich and poor, requires no money to buy, yet holds immense value. A smile can be comfort for a lonely elder, invisible encouragement for someone despairing, a warm gift for someone in sorrow. Imagine meeting an old friend after many years apart. Just a smile in greeting is enough to make your heart throb with happiness. Or in an argument, instead of using harsh words, if one side knows how to smile and listen, the fire of anger will subside. At that moment, the smile is the cool water that extinguishes the fire of anger. In the Buddhist teachings, he once mentioned the efficacy of joy, stating that a joyful mind brings health, longevity, and inner peace, and a smile is the very door that opens to that joyful mind. If we know how to smile a little more, be a little more compassionate, we ourselves will feel much lighter at heart. Sometimes life doesn't change. Work remains difficult, challenges persist, but it is the inner smile that gives us the strength to move forward. Try to remember, when was the last time you laughed truly freely, truly innocently? Perhaps it was while chatting with friends, or seeing a funny sight on the street, or simply when you smiled to yourself because you suddenly understood something about life. In those moments, your mind must have felt very light, didn't it? That is proof of the healing power of a smile. So how can we cultivate smiles in daily life? Perhaps first and foremost, we need to turn inward and listen to ourselves. When the mind is entangled with too many worries, a smile will be difficult to bloom. Therefore, practice gradually letting go of unnecessary things. Practice mindful breathing. Practice looking at life with eyes of compassion. For example, when someone hurts you, instead of getting angry, smile and think that they are also human, also experiencing suffering in life. At that moment, the smile is not just forgiveness, but also a gift you give yourself. You can practice smiling meditation every day. Sit still, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and gently smile. That smile doesn't need to be broad or forced. It just needs to be natural. Let that smile spread from your lips to your eyes, and then throughout your body. You will feel your body relax, your mind soothe, and a sense of peace gradually permeate every moment. A smile is also like a flower. If you care for it and nurture it with gratitude and appreciation, it will bloom beautifully in your soul. But if you let your mind wither in sorrow and anger, the smile will gradually disappear. Therefore, remember that every day we have the right to choose how we choose